Okay, so we are not in the studio today. We are in the basement of my house, and we didn't want to spend any money on setting up a podcast, so we cobbled together a studio. What do you guys think?
I feel like I worked very hard on this project.
You were Christmas shopping.
I was eating lunch.
And Horse, what happened?
I mean, it was an entire afternoon of, does this cable match with this, and can we change stereo into mono, and can we make this little three-prongy thing, and does this cable work, and does this microphone work? And at the end of the day, we still ended up with something that's so jacked up. I can't believe we actually made that happen.
I'm surprised we didn't use duct tape.
It was coming.
Yeah.
It was coming, and some aluminum foil.
Hey, I'm going to need a little duct tape on these headphones, actually.
Hey, we did use aluminum foil to plug a headphone jack into a houseboat amplifier. Remember? You forgot.
Oh, my God, we did do that.
Aluminum foil wrapped around a 1/8-inch audio.
Yeah.
Oh, just turn it into a quarter inch?
Turn it into a quarter.
Because why were we doing that?
Because we wanted to play guitar through the houseboat speakers.
Oh, my God.
We blew the amp.
I wonder why. You are listening to The Soapbox. I'm Paul.
And I'm Eric.
This all started out with a list. What's that all about?
So I've compiled a list over the years of things that just bother me, things that grind my gears. And I shared that list with you.
And I thought, you know what? That would make interesting conversation. Sometimes I'm going to want to agree with you, and it's just going to be something we talk about. Other times, though, I'm going to want to steel man the opposite position because I think that's just interesting conversation.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I'm always right, but Paul's just a really good debater.
Hey.
So you want me to start the call? So I already was concerned with when I was talking to Greeny about this that I didn't want to step on anybody's toes because you all have a good thing going. I've listened to every episode, and I didn't want to be like, hey, you know what you guys need is me. So I mean, you can intro me or just however you want to.
I was hoping you would intro us as the guests on your
guests
podcast
on the
here. On Horseplay with Horse.
Well, gosh, okay. So I've known Greeny for, let's see. I've known Greeny since 1997.
Yeah, sounds right.
He knew my name by 2001.
That's true.
Wait, your name's not Horse?
We'll tell it. Okay, should I tell that story? We're at the Super Bowl party.
Yeah, of course.
We're outside, actually, smoking a cigarette back when we smoked cigarettes.
Yep.
And he says, "So, your name's Horse. Where's that come from?" I was like, "Oh, it's nickname Horseshack." You know, our buddy John, who's severely ADD, made up nicknames for everybody. And I was like, "Oh, it's Horseshack." And he goes, "Oh, okay, cool." He says, "Can I ask you something?" I was like, "Yeah." What is your name?
Was this at Nick's?
It was at Doc's.
It was at Doc's. That's okay.
It's our buddy Doc.
Yes.
Friend.
This is the stark difference between friendships among men and friendships among women. Because I'll hang out with guy friends for hours, and then go home, and my wife wants to know, what did you talk about?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that we talked about anything. We spent maybe 3 hours together. There was maybe some bourbon and maybe some video games involved, but do we have meaningful conversation? And I can spend an evening with a bunch of guys and leave and not know any of their names. And I feel like that's fulfilling. And that would not fly with her.
So we see that in Vinny. He'll tell us a story. He's like, I went to school, and we had this new class and this new exercise, and I have a new best friend. He is awesome. He likes Star Wars. He's into Fortnite. He plays a little soccer. Oh, it's awesome. I need to hang out with him. Hey, Vinny. Yeah. What's his name? I don't know. I didn't ask him.
Did you get a gamer tag or anything?
No, nothing.
So this is the long way around to say we've got another guest.
Yeah.
And the setup is different.
Oh, yeah.
I think we need to talk about this.
Okay.
So I don't know if we're going to use our cold open or not. Perhaps we've already discussed it, but we are not on location, so there's not going to be any sirens in the background. No, take a shot. We are in Eric's basement.
Yep.
And it's a little weird down here. All these chains and leather. What's that all for?
That's my Zoom background, by the way.
Should we talk about? It's also like there's probably some people that they're used to a fairly clean podcast, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now
We might be beeping you just so
one
we
of
don't
the,
run into
one of
ad
the things,
territory.
One of the things I told Green, I was like, look, I'm going to let some slip. Okay. I know that you, Paul, you have some part of the audience that you know that they listen to it. They may not appreciate it, but I mean, I'm not going to do like, you know, like when I was talking about less furry, but then after that, it was like a dolphin. I mean, I'm not going to go that crazy.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So
I don't think I'm ever going to look at you and not imagine that.
I think
listen,
my whips and chains just blushed right there.
well, I mean, anyway, because we're having beverages here, we're doing it a little different than what you normally do on your podcast, and I don't think I actually said. I should be clear that Paul and I know each other through Greenie here.
Yeah.
I think we met at Friendsgiving or something like that.
It's been several years of ships in the night. We tend to sort of
Yeah.
cross paths fairly
Yeah.
regularly at this point,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
The reason you're here, just to be explicit about that, is that you are our number one superfan, which
Right.
I am honored. Personally, I thought that maybe the tramp stamp with our faces was a little much, but it's tasteful. You know, it's a tasteful piece. It's not too large.
It's done in a Baroque style, which was my wife's request. Yeah, I mean, Greenie came back. You've had what? I'm going to guess. As of taping today, you've had 14 episodes or something like that.
This will be number 14.
This will be number 14.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you know, he told me about this idea that you all had, and I was like, you know, that actually sounds like a cool idea. I listen to a lot of podcasts. This is the first time I've actually known somebody who does a podcast, and I was excited for you all because, you know, I feel like this podcasting thing is going to blow up pretty soon.
It's going to take off.
Yeah, you're getting into the right
People
time.
are talking about it.
Yeah, you're getting into the right time. But I do listen to every episode, mostly because I want to support you guys, but also because I actually find your conversations to be pretty interesting.
Which everybody says that, and they're all surprised. Which is I kind of like.
Okay, listen, I've known a couple other people that have done stuff like this, and it's brutally painful to listen to.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name anybody, but it's, you know, it doesn't always turn out as well as the quality of what you guys have going. So one of the things I thought was cool is like the things that you talk about. I said to Greenie one day, I was like, man, I want to come in and give you some notes because there's some things that like I want to continue that conversation on.
Nice.
So I had that idea with Greenie. We don't necessarily have to do that today. We're just kind of screwing around on a Sunday afternoon, having some beverages and.
I honestly, I love the idea. I know that maybe there's some trepidation not wanting to step on toes, but sort of the format is exactly being comfortable stepping on toes a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
it's about having a soapbox. It's having an opinion. And I think the wise sage of our time, Katy Perry, once said that if you stand for nothing, then you'll fall for anything, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
But I do think when you take a risk and you weigh in on something and you have an opinion, whether that's strongly negative, strongly positive, whatever, the moment you pick a side, you're going to alienate somebody that takes the opposite position. And I think being an adult is being comfortable with the notion that that's okay. You don't have to be friends with everybody. It's not like elementary school where you have to be nice to the weird kid. You can just say, you're weird. Stop being weird.
Yeah. Sure.
Tell you what, pick an episode.
Okay.
Give us the I wish you would have gone, whatever the notes, and then we'll break for commercial.
Okay. I'll take a softball one first.
Oh.
So, and this is probably there's not really an opinion one way or the other on this, but the time travel episode was one of my favorites. Especially when you started talking about cool time travel movies, and of course, you know, you hit a lot of the good ones. Donnie Darko, fantastic. The Back to the Future movies, I mean, that's, you know, to me kind of the gold standard. But there were a couple that you didn't mention that I was like waiting, especially with Greenie on the talking about time travel movies. One that he recommended to me several years ago was a movie called Primer, or Primer. I don't know
Yeah.
if Paul may or may not know this.
I don't know
It's
this
a
one.
2004 movie, very indie. It's like an hour and 20 minutes long. It's like their time machine. When I say indie, their time machine was literally made out of like PVC pipe and
Nice.
and like sheet plastic and like what looked like a very small like commercial pizza oven. Okay, and a bunch of wires. And
If you're gonna build a time machine, you got to make sure you use parts off the shelf.
listen, it was garage built. Like there was an early version of the Solo stove in there. It was crazy. Sponsorship idea.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Solo Stove.
But the thing I love about that movie, and one thing that you kind of touched on in the episode, was that it deals. Number one, it deals with an interesting concept that ends up being and I'll try not to spoil the plot of the movie.
It's been out for 20 years.
It's been out for 20 years, it's very hard to find. I tried to find it the other day because I wanted to rewatch it. It's like I don't know if it exists anymore. Like if you pay, listeners out there, pay for it. Go find a place where you can just buy it. You probably can get it for $8. Okay.
Should we just wait? We could just wait now. Let them go watch it. And then come back.
Take a break and we'll watch it. Go watch Primer or Primer, however it's pronounced, and come back. But two of the concepts they touched on. One was that actually became a plot point of the movie later on was what would be the physical side effects of time travel. You know, what does that do to your body? What does it do to your brain and your nervous system? And could you survive time? You know, doing a lot of time travel, which, you know, if you think about it, I'm gonna cheaply tie in one of your other episodes. If you think about, we kind of do time travel to ourselves right now when we do daylight savings time. You go to bed someday in the spring, you wake up, you've been asleep for 6 hours. Oh no, you've been asleep for 7, and it completely fucks your day up. So, there's part of that in there that I think was interesting. The other thing was like the moral and ethical battle in that movie, where the two creators, these two guys, they come up with this machine that does time travel, and one of them has a real interest in making it commercial and making it, you know, making as much money off of it as he possibly can. The other guy sees the risks in that and actually makes some interesting decisions when it comes to himself, where he was kind of the one that was the primary developer of the machine, and he goes back and kind of he takes some drastic steps when it comes to himself in the past, which I thought was kind of an interesting concept. That, you know, you can go back, you talk about going back and fixing your mistakes, but, you know, going back and, you know, kill Hitler, whatever. But making those like moral and ethical decisions when it comes to time travel is something that's a movie that I think everybody should check out.
One of the things that I think sums up that movie beautifully is a meme out there that you probably find it, where it's like Lord of the Rings and maybe they did Back to the Future, but they do these little line graphs showing where the characters are. You know, Frodo's here, and then he meets up with all these other different colored lines, and it basically is a temporal and spatial graph of the movie. And then they show Primer, and it's like just a bunch of cursive, a bunch of just.
It's like spaghetti.
It looks like spaghetti. It's beautiful.
Nice.
So anyway,
So
Primer, go ahead.
1 week after we published the time travel episode, I watched a clip with Neil deGrasse Tyson. And one of the things that he was talking about was time travel. But he brought up a point that I wish we had included on that. And that is an object fixed in time or an idea fixed in time. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
Yes.
So if you travel back in time and then you hand a locket. I think this was the premise of a movie. An older lady hands a younger man a locket and says, "Find me." And then he travels back in time, finds her, gives her the locket. Well, the locket exists outside of time because it's perpetually in a loop. So that locket has no point of origin. It's always existed, and it's constantly feeding this cycle of going back and forward through this one section of time. And the same thing can be true of information as well.
Uh-huh.
If you go back in time and you tell yourself a song, and then you quote unquote write the song, like in Back to the Future, you know, he plays the guitar and he says, "Hey, you're not ready for this, but your kids will be."
Or the Marvin Gaye line too. He holds the phone up to his brother.
That's the one.
Yeah.
and he listens to it, and that's
like,
why he writes that
yeah.
song. But he wouldn't have written
Yeah.
the song if Michael J. Fox hadn't played the song, or
Yeah.
Marty McFly.
Yeah.
Marty McFly wouldn't have played it if he hadn't written it. So now
it's-
that
yeah.
idea exists
Yeah.
outside of time, and I thought that is maybe one of the more fascinating ideas within, I guess, the fake time travel movie narrative.
There's another one we missed too, and that is, and again, I feel like all my funny things come from memes now, but there's another meme like, I wanna travel to the place I was born, and the genie's like, are you sure you want to do that? It's like, yeah, I want to see where I was born, and he's like, okay, and then poof, he's in the middle of space. The genie's got a helmet on, and he's breathing fine, and the dude's just floating out in space, dying, dead. And the point is yeah, that's where he was born. It's just the Earth isn't there right now because it's moving. And that's, you travel in time. It's like, why are we glued to, like the spatial component of it is.
I've seen a variation of that meme where somebody dies and their ghost can pass through objects. And at first it's very novel because they're like, look, I can float through walls. And then the planet keeps moving and they're stuck in space. And then you see this long line of ghosts following the planet, all stuck in space where they died.
Those are two interesting things that you guys bring up, because I've always been fascinated with the concept of what's called eternalism. It sounds like some kind of, religious cult or something, but it's actually the concept that there isn't actually, like, everything in the universe is actually, like, everything that's happened, past, present, future, has already happened. It's all just, the universe is just a bunch of information, and the only reason that we have the movement of time is because beings like us that exist on this plane, that's the way that we process the information that's available. So it's also called, I think it's called the block universe. Anyway, that's getting super nerdy. We don't have to.
I like that. I kind of want to unpack that a little more to see if I understand that.
Yeah.
So this is a deterministic view of the world.
Yeah.
So all things have already happened in the sense that if you could look outside the dimension of time, now we're getting into dimensions.
Yeah,
3D.
look at that.
Yeah.
Callbacks.
All things exist outside of that dimension already, and so just like any other dimension, you can see all aspects of that dimension theoretically from a higher dimension.
Yes.
And so what we're looking at is just cross sections as processed through the sensory ability that we have to be able to perceive those things.
Right. Essentially, everything is just information, and that information exists on different dimensional levels. There's a good chance that I'm butchering this, but they touch on it a little bit in the movie Interstellar.
Yes.
When they have the construct, that structure that's built at the end.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. I've always been fascinated in it. I'm not saying that's what it is, what we're doing, or how we live, but it's cool that you guys brought that up, because I was thinking about that in terms of the time travel thing. It's like, if that's actually the truth, then what can you manipulate the universe around you so that you don't have to perceive everything in that linear.
There's one other perspective that I don't think we covered, and I don't know if you guys have heard this before, but there's one theory in physics that suggests that all things are actually moving in the opposite direction in terms of time, and only our perception is actually moving forward. And so it's like a reverse determinism.
Yep.
We're moving towards our birth in like a weird Benjamin Button sort of fashion. And so all things that we think have happened are yet to happen. And we're only just perceiving it in the reverse order because of however this physical model is supposed to work.
Yeah.
This makes, and I want to be cheap too, and this makes me think of a video game, which is another episode, called Braid. Did you ever play Braid?
I feel like I've heard of Braid, but I don't know if I can say I've played it.
Yeah, so it's a modern-ish game, because it's, and I say that, and it's like 20 years probably 20 years old, but it was
spoiler alert.
Right. But it was like a 2D, what's the Mario style 2D side scroller, and very, very low graphics, but you download it on Steam and whatever. But yeah, anytime you die, it just pauses, and you can back up and reverse time.
Okay, it was Prince of Persia was the first game that did
that. Like that?
Yeah.
Well, this one really, really melts your brain, because in the game, basically there's no death penalty because you can always go back, but you have to solve puzzles. And sometimes when you go back in time, some objects keep going forward still. if they're glowing a certain color or whatever.
Okay.
So it's you can go back in time, but
Doesn't necessarily fix the solution.
yeah. So you got to do all this weird like gymnastics to get the platforms to line up so you can jump on it and get the key and open. And I'll tell you, we made it through most of the levels, and finally I got to the point where my brain just hurt because of okay, this can go back in time, but that can't. But if I step on this thing, then and it's time travel-y, but yeah.
But it's not deterministic.
It's not.
There's
Yeah.
some element that has free will.
Wow. Yeah. So there are these weird free will objects that.
It's the opposite of deterministic,
Yeah.
really, because it means that no matter what you do, you can go back and change it, right? Isn't
Well,
that kind of isn't it?
It is, except some
Except for
objects.
some objects,
Except for
maybe.
except for some objects.
And
I love it when we use words we don't understand.
Yeah,
And-
it's great.
Yeah, no, it's great.
But if we're using them wrong, call it out in the comment section.
Yeah.
Because honestly, that engagement helps our SEO, and we selfishly want that.
That's actually we purposely get things wrong to get people to. No, that's not true.
Yeah.
We get
have I
wrong.
told you the Earth is flat?
Ah,
Is it really?
We did this, didn't we?
did we? Maybe.
Have you heard this?
Oh,
so.
yes, we did this.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we won't rehash that.
Yeah, we don't need to get into that one. That's
Let me pivot for just a moment, because
Mhm.
you actually mentioned 2 movies, right?
yes.
So what was the second?
The second one was Looper, which is I think it was 2012. It was Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, by the way, who does not, for whatever reason, get enough movies. But anyway, the concept of the movie is Joseph Gordon-Levitt is he's kind of an assassin, but really what happens is he works for an organization, a crime organization that in the future has figured out time travel and how to send things back in time, and they go back and forth, and the guy that Levitt reports to is from the future, and basically what they do is they send people who they're trying to get rid of back in time from the future to Joseph Gordon-Levitt's time, and he's expected they show up right in front of him, and he's expected to execute them.
And then that was a dead body in the future.
Right, no dead body in the future, no way to track it. They're just
Because
gone.
they're not missing in the past.
Because they're just they're just missing in the past, but there's no way to, there's not going to be a body or whatever. The trick comes in when one day, future Joseph Gordon-Levitt,
played by
Bruce Willis, is the one that pops up in front of him, and he.
The visual of making him look like Bruce Willis was phenomenal.
So you've seen this movie?
I have seen this
Okay,
movie.
okay.
And I absolutely, it was such an uncanny valley thing, because I also love I love both actors, but to see, and I'm always thinking of him as a Third Rock from the Sun, right?
Yeah.
But to see him portray not just the aesthetic with the makeup and the prosthetics and everything that he was wearing, but the nuance of his speech patterns,
Yes.
and the way he'd hold his mouth, and he did such a good job.
He does a great job. We're going to turn this into a JGL love fest here, but
Fanboys.
his work in Inception was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Everything he
I
did.
hate that movie.
Really?
I
Okay.
think Inception is so overrated. Do you want to?
Really?
Do we want to go there?
Oh man, let's go, because that's one of my favorites. I'm a big Christopher Nolan fan anyway. That's top 2 or 3 for me.
I appreciate what they were trying to do. I thought that it was so overrated. Both the visuals of the movie I thought was too uncanny valley. Everything felt spongy and weird, and then the whole plot, it just felt like that show, Pimp My Ride.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I hear you like
Wow.
Super Nintendo, so I'll put a Super Nintendo in your Super Nintendo. It's like, okay, how many layers are we going to add to this? It's such a cheap way to write a movie.
I can see what you're saying, because there are a few things at the end that get a little weird with that movie. Because if you really break it down, the timelines don't quite add up, and how it was that Leo DiCaprio gets back out of the dream, and I understand. I get what you're saying. I liked the sponginess and the weirdness of that, because it all felt on some level like, he'd actually Christopher Nolan had actually put you into a dream, into
Yeah.
a dream state. So I kind of appreciated that part, and I like I like the things that Christopher Nolan in fact does with time, when he does Interstellar, when he did Dunkirk is a great one where it kind of moves forward and back. Tenet
was,
Everybody gets one.
Tenet was like Braid.
Still trying to figure that one out. But
Tenet really was like Braid with the backwards that
Right.
really hurt my brain. I one that's not Christopher Nolan, I don't think. Memento.
Ooh.
oh yes,
This is another.
That might be top 5 for me.
It's,
Yeah.
I love
it's
that
one of my
movie.
favorite movies, and it fits with time travel in a sense because
They tell the whole story backwards.
yeah, well, like in black and white, it's going one direction, in color, it's going the other direction, and the director tried to get you to be as confused as our main character with the whole memory thing. It's wonderfully done. I mean, I
I
think
still feel feelings when I think about that scene when they're all spitting in his beer. Do you remember that?
yes,
yeah,
I was so mad about that.
yeah.
Well, and the scene that always gets me is when what's the actor's name?
Matrix.
The Trinity.
Trinity,
Let's
yeah.
call
That
it
is her
Trinity.
name. Yes.
That's we're gonna get in trouble for that one for sure. When she tricks him into thinking that
He hasn't, he
that
hasn't paid her
he's
yet, or
that he hasn't paid, or there's it's been a while since I saw that.
There's
one.
writing a check, and no,
She
took a
tricked
pen.
him. No, she tricked him into thinking that somebody beaten her up.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And she's like, and it's like that clear, because up until that point you start to have sort of a sympathetic relationship
Yeah.
with this character, and at that point you realize, oh shit, like she is she's figured this guy out.
Yeah.
And
She's
she
the bad
is
guy.
manipulating this dude who actually, he's kind of our hero, right?
Yeah.
Guy Pearce
Guy
is
Pearce,
like,
yeah.
who's
And she hid all the hiding of the pens.
Yes.
Actually touches one of my quick hit soapboxes if I could squeeze it in.
Yeah, do it.
So I had this weird fear / like compulsion of if I want to make a list of things, I got to go to the grocery to get all these things to do or whatever. I don't want to start thinking about the list until I'm ready to write them down.
Because you're afraid you'll forget.
I have this fear that once I start listing them, I've like used up that brain energy, and it's the dumbest thing in the world because I should be able to come up with them again and given more time and think right. But
Yeah.
no, I don't want to start thinking about it, and it'll happen. Kristen will rattle off a few things we need to get the grocery. I'll be like, wait, don't stop saying them. Let me get the app open and so I had this weird memento moment
Yeah.
where, and she hid all the pens in his house so he couldn't write down what she was doing to him,
so that he couldn't figure out what she
Yeah.
was doing to him.
which is why he
Yeah.
got the tattoos, which I thought was
Right.
a brilliant,
So that's why I got this tattoo that says eggs, milk, bacon. No.
It's always the same stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so time travel, we missed a couple big ones.
That's okay.
Yeah,
But you got to
Hey.
stay in the 30 minutes, right? So
yeah.
Well, we'll definitely have to have you back next time. And
Yeah.
we didn't ask the most important question, the whole format of the soapbox. And that is, what grinds your gears?
oh man.
Next time on the soapbox. Thanks for listening to the soapbox. Eric, how can people find us?
Well, conveniently, we put everything on our Linktree site. You can go to Linktree, search SoapBox Lex, and you'll find all of our socials there, plus ways to reach us, ways to engage, and some of our original content, so you can see some of the other stuff that we do.